Good day, everyone, and welcome to the third recorded discussion. Today's discussion will focus more on the character analysis of Achilles and Hector and the major themes in the text, the Iliad. Before we start, let us have a brief discussion of Homer and the events in the text. Homer is the author of the text, the Iliad and the Odyssey. These epics are known to be the central texts of ancient Greek literature. Homer lived during the Iron Age of Greece. During this time, Greece was not a united country. The country was divided into factions, so during this time, they focused more on creating armors and weapons that were made of iron to protect their land. We also talked about the Homeric questions, or the concerns and doubts surrounding the authorship of Homer over the two epics. Now let's talk about the text, the Iliad. The Iliad is a long narrative epic poem written in dactylic hexameter. The story combines the history, legends, and religion of the ancient Greeks, the imagination, invention, and lively storytelling abilities of a great poet, Homer. The poem begins in the 10th year of the Trojan War, beginning with the conflict between King Agamemnon and Achilles, our swift-footed Achaean warrior. After a recent battle, each Greek hero has received spoils of his reward for victory. The king has received the most wealth and a beautiful woman, Chryses, and each warrior has received his share of the spoils according to his rank and heroism. Chryses, a priest of Apollo and the father of the bride of Agamemnon, comes to Agamemnon with gifts and offerings to ransom his daughter. Against the advice of the army, however, Agamemnon refuses to let Chryseis go, so the priest of Apollo comes to Apollo to ask for revenge. Apollo sends a plague into the Greek army, and a huge chunk of his army dies. Achilles confronts Agamemnon, who grudgingly agrees to return Chryseis. In return, Agamemnon will take the bride of Achilles, Briseis. This made Achilles mad to the point where he almost kills Agamemnon if Athena didn't try to stop him. Achilles is inconsolable, and he asks his mother Thetis, a goddess of the sea, to persuade Zeus to punish Agamemnon by helping the Trojans until his honor is restored. Thetis does as her son bids, and Zeus agrees with the result of the gods already divided into loyalties, each god fighting or protecting his or her own side. Athena and Hera supporting the Greeks, while Apollo and Aphrodite support the Troy. If we look back at the cause of the war, it would lead us to the story of the judgment of Paris. Many years ago, during the wedding of Peleus and Thetis, the goddess Athena, Aphrodite, and Hera was fighting for the golden apple of discord. Each goddess desired to be known as the most beautiful or the fairest of them all, and they competed aggressively for that apple. Since Zeus could not decide for himself, he asked Paris to judge the three goddesses. Paris first examined Hera, who promised him all of Asia and the great wealth if he could choose her. But Paris refused this bribe. He next examined Athena, who promised to make Paris victorious in all his battles. She also promised to make him the most handsome and wise man in the world. Paris also refused her offer. Finally, Aphrodite promised that she could offer Paris Helen, the wife of Menelaus, king of Sparta. She promised that she can make Helen fall in love with him and that she will become the bride of Paris. With that offer, Aphrodite was named the fairest of them all. This decision angered Hera and Athena that they plotted the destruction of Troy, and thus began the 10-year Trojan War. Now let's talk about the heroes in the Iliad. We have Hector and Achilles. Achilles is known to be the greatest warrior in the Achaean army. Achilles possesses superhuman strength. He is driven primarily by the thirst of glory. A part of him yearns to live long and to live an easy life, but he knows that his personal fate forces him to choose between the two. Ultimately, he is willing to sacrifice everything else so that his name will be remembered. On the other side of war, we have Hector. Hector is the undisputed commander of the Trojan army. He is viewed as the future king of Troy, and as such, he already knows his responsibility to his community. His concern for the Trojan women and for the Trojan community in general define him as a norm for the Homeric society. In Book 6, he had a deep conversation with his wife Andromache, where she said, Hector, thus it is you are father to me, and my honored mother. You are my brother, and you it is who are my young husband. Please take pity upon me then. Stay here on the rampart, that you may not leave your child an orphan, or your wife a widow. This shows Hector's importance in the society he lives in. He is the mother, the caretaker of Troy, the father, the protector, and the husband, the foundation and the leader of the household. Andromache highlights the hero's importance in his society. Hector replies, All this weighs on my mind too, dear woman, but I would die of shame to face the men of Troy and the Trojan women trailing their robes. If I would shrink from battle now, a coward, nor does the spirit urge me on that way. I've learned it all too well to stand up bravely. Always fight in front of the ranks of the Trojan soldiers, winning my great father's great glory and glory to myself. In Hector's reply, we see that he willingly accepts his role and his position in the society. Compared to Achilles, he refused to take part in his society because he believes that he is greater than what the society could offer him. He does the quote unquote right thing by isolating himself to spite the king who dishonored him. His rage at his loss of honor brings greater destruction to the Greeks, his people, and the loss of Patroclus, his closest companion. Only this disaster enables Achilles to re-enter his society and the war, and thus he regains his honor. Now let's move on to the major themes of the text. The first one is death is inevitable. As much as our hero, Achilles, tries to live an immortal life, he is still confronted with the idea of death. Both heroes are confronted with the idea that this war will bring their end. Death is a part of being human. The text also shows that before death comes, we must try to live an honorable life. We must strive to live a life where we try to leave a legacy of good things in our society, as reflected in the character of Hector. The next theme that we have is our desires and pain is what makes us human. Our desires and our fear of pain affects our daily decisions that makes our lives more meaningful. As seen in the desires of our hero, like Achilles desired to live immortally and Hector desired to preserve the city of Troy, we see how they also handled the frustration and the pain if they weren't able to get what they desired. Okay? Next is there are no winners in war. The epic poem The Iliad may have been used to glorify war during the ancient times, but this poem resonates a different lesson in today's society. The poem shows the human side of these events in history. People die gruesome deaths, women become slaves and concubines, children are made orphans by the war. This can be seen when Hector says that life or death are returns of a war. There is no true victory in war. As seen on the text, the Greeks may have been able to sack the city of Troy, but it also cost them their great warriors, and their own cities also suffered because they lost their city's leaders in this war. That's why no one can really say that they won the war, because when we are at war, we lose one of the most important things in humanity, which is peace. Okay? To end this recorded session, I would like to ask you to share your insights by answering the question, what can Homer's The Iliad tell the readers about the war that history textbooks might not? You may share your insight by creating a comment on this post, and you may also share the theme that struck you the most. Alright, again, thank you for listening to the recorded discussion of the Iliad's major themes and character analysis.